Affinity Photo allows us to insert embedded or linked documents into other documents, then place them into perspective non-destructively. Here's how we would approach such a workflow. Here I have an interior scene with a television. I've got another edited scene as a separate AF photo document, which I'm going to place into this document. To do this, we can either go to File and Place, or we can go out to our File Explorer, then drag-drop the file into Affinity Photo, and let go of the mouse button over our document here, like so. And if I just move across to the Layers panel, you can see that document file has now been placed as a layer. So now that we've placed it into our scene, let's scale it down. We can use the Move tool, which you can access using V on the keyboard, scale from a corner handle, and hold Command on Mac, Control on Windows to resize around the center of the layer. This is performed non-destructively, so you don't have to worry about committing the transformation and losing resolution. Now, before we begin transforming its perspective to match the television, we should look at the aspect ratio. Most televisions, even in 3D renders, should have a 16:9 aspect ratio, or something close to that value. So we want to crop our placed document to that ratio. We can go in and edit this document, either by double-clicking on the thumbnail here, or when we have the Move tool active, we can choose Edit Document from the context toolbar. This opens the placed document in a separate tab. Let's select the Crop tool either from the Tools panel here or by using C on the keyboard. Then, from the presets here, I can choose 16:9. Then I can just click Apply to commit that crop. While we are here, I've set this composition up so that I can quickly switch out different lighting setups by simply changing which group is shown. This is one of the key advantages of using native Affinity documents when placing content into other documents. You can retain the layer structure and make changes like this very easily. We can now just close this document and it will be updated in our main document. So now that we've performed the cropping, let's transform the perspective. To do this non-destructively, we can use a live perspective filter. Making sure the embedded document layer is selected, we can either add the live filter from down here, like so, or alternatively, we can go to Layer, New Live Filter Layer, Distort, and Perspective. Now it's just a case of matching up the 4 perspective corner nodes to the edges of the television. So to pan around, I'm just click holding the middle mouse button. And once we've done that, we can close the dialog here. For a finishing touch, let's select the embedded document layer and change its blend mode so that the reflections on the television blend through. The best mode to choose for this is going to be Screen. Okay, now don't forget that this workflow is completely non-destructive, so you can always go back into the perspective filter by double-clicking on it like so, and you can modify the corner nodes if you need to. And also, because of course this is an embedded document, you can double-click it like so and go back in to change various aspects of it. Also, if you want this placed document to be linked externally rather than embedded, you can very quickly toggle this by going to View and Resource Manager, selecting the resource, so that's this embedded document here, and clicking Make Linked. Now, because we have edited the embedded version, it will prompt us to overwrite the external version of the document. If we wish to retain that crop and any subsequent edits, we must choose Yes here. Okay. Now, let's say we wanted to take the same approach, but with a flattened bitmap file, like a JPEG or a TIFF. So I will just delete this linked document. I'll go back out to my File Explorer and I'll place this JPEG here. Once again, I'll select the Move tool using V on the keyboard, and rather than have to zoom out to scale this image down, I can instead click here on the context toolbar and use the scale option, like so. Okay, now the problem here is that we can't edit this image separately in order to crop it, since it is not a native Affinity document. Rather than having to load it in as a separate document, crop it, then re-export it, we can instead use a non-destructive method to mask this image. So what I will do is select the rectangle tool from the Tools panel here. Then I'm going to just quickly draw out a white rectangle. Down here, on the Transform panel, I will set the width to 16 pixels, tab across to height, and set the height to 9 pixels. This will make the rectangle tiny, but I can now hold Shift and scale it up proportionally using one of the corner nodes, safe in the knowledge that my 16:9 aspect ratio will be maintained. Now I'll switch across to the Move tool, and I can also turn on snapping up here. And this will help me line up the rectangle. So if I just select the image layer, then go back to the rectangle, that will define the image layer as a snapping candidate. And now what I can do is just line my rectangle up to the edges of the image and then just make sure it is horizontally centered. Finally, on the Layers panel, I can click drag this rectangle layer and offer it to the thumbnail of the image layer. Not the text, but specifically the thumbnail. Then release the mouse button. This will treat the rectangle as a mask. And now we have our 16:9 aspect ratio. Then, as before, I'll select the image layer, reposition it, add a live perspective filter, place the image into perspective just by click dragging on the 4 corner nodes again. Close the dialog. I can use Escape to do this quickly. Then select the image layer, set the blend mode to screen, and there we go. We've put our image into perspective. And as I showed you before, we can of course go to the Resource Manager, and this is currently set to embedded. We could make it linked, and that would not only reduce our document file size, but also allow the image to be updated externally if it was overwritten. One final technique to show you, again focusing on a non-destructive workflow, is that you can clip any adjustment or live filter into this placed image that is currently in perspective. For example, I could add a white balance adjustment layer, then click drag on this layer, and offer it over the text or the label of the image layer and let go of the mouse button. So this will isolate the effect of the white balance adjustment to this layer, as you can see here, allowing us to make changes without having to edit the original image. So that was a quick video on how to put placed images or documents into the correct perspective using non-destructive techniques. I hope you found it useful, and thank you for watching.